Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for standing by, and welcome to the fourth quarter and full year of 2021 Tarena International Inc. earnings conference call. At this time, all participants are in a listen-only mode. After the speaker's presentation, there will be a question-and-answer session. To ask a question during the session, you will need to press star one on your telephone. I must advise you that this conference is being recorded today, March 16, 2022. I'd now like to hand the conference over to your first speaker today, Ms. Sylvia Young, Investor Relations Manager. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Thank you, operator. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Tarena's earnings conference call for the fourth quarter and full year of 2021. The company's earnings results were released earlier today and are available on our IR website, ir.tedu.cn, as well as on newswire services. Today, you will hear from Ms. Nancy Yin-Sun, our CEO, and Mr. Kelvin Lau, our CFO, who will take you through the company's operational and financial results for the fourth quarter and full year of 2021 and give revenue guidance for the first quarter of 2022. After their prepared remarks, Nancy and Kelvin will be available to answer your questions. Before we continue, please note that the discussion today will contain certain forward-looking statements made under the Safe Harbor provisions of the U.S. Private Securities Litigation Reform Act of 1995. These forward-looking statements are subject to risks and uncertainties that may cause actual results to differ materially from our current expectations. Tarena does not assume any obligation to update any forward-looking statements except as required under applicable law. Also, please note that some of the information to be discussed includes non-GAAP financial measures as defined in Regulation G. The U.S. GAAP financial measures and information reconciling these non-GAAP financial measures to Tarena's financial results prepared in accordance with U.S. GAAP are included in Tarena's earnings release, which has been posted on the company's IR website at ir.tedu.cn. Finally, as a reminder, this conference call is being recorded. In addition, a webcast of this conference call is available on Tarena's Investor Relations website. I will now turn the call over to Ms. Nancy Yin-Sun, the CEO of Tarena.
谢谢杨爽，谢谢参加本次电话会的各位投资者朋友们，感谢大家一直以来对达内的关注。
Thank you, Sylvia, and thanks to all the shareholders to participate in our call. Thank you very much for your attention and your support.
在此，我很高兴地向大家宣布达内公司2021年第四季度的业绩情况。2021年的第四季度，我们欣喜地看到，无论是青少年的素质教育业务，还是成人的 IT 职业教育业务，我们的现金收款都创出了年内的季度新高。这使得我们2021年 Q4 的运营正向现金流达到了 1.295 个亿。截止2021年末，我们的现金余额达到了 4.304 亿。
We are pleased to announce Tarena's results for the fourth quarter of 2021. We are delighted to see that in the fourth quarter of 2021, both of our childhood and adolescent quality education and adult professional education businesses reached their highest amounts of quarterly cash collection during the year of 2021. As a result, our net cash provided by operating activities in the fourth quarter of 2021 achieved RMB 129.5 million, and our total cash and cash equivalent balance increased to RMB 430.4 million as of December 31st, 2021.
同时，我们也很高兴地看到，2021年的第四季度，我们的总净收入6.553亿元，高于上一季度我们给出的收入指引，较2020年同期的6.503亿元同比增长 0.8%。而在2021年的下半年，我们的净收入由第三季度的6.152亿元环比增长了 6.5%。第四季度， 我们的经营亏损额由去年同期的8513万元下降到了6036万元，同比降幅达到29.1%。经营亏损率由2020年同期的13.1%下降了3.9个百分点至9.2%。在扣除了所得税1.26亿后，本季度我们的净亏损为1.825亿。所得税的增加主要是因为在年末考虑递延所得税资产在5年内使用的可能性而进行的所得税费用合理计提。同时，我们公司的总员工人数从2020年第4季度末的10181人下降了1.7%至2021年末的10009人，人均产能从去年同期的约17.24万元提升了37.1%到2021年的约23.64万元。
At the same time, we are glad to see that our total net revenues were RMB 655.3 million, which was higher than the guidance we gave in the last quarter. The total net revenues in the fourth quarter of 2021 increased by 0.8% as compared to the total net revenues of RMB 650.3 million in the same period of last year, and increased by 6.5% as compared to the total net revenue of RMB 615.2 million in the third quarter of 2021. Operating loss decreased by about 29.1% to RMB 60.4 million in the fourth quarter of 2021 from RMB 85.1 million in the same period of last year. Operating margin improved by 3.9% points to 9.2% in the fourth quarter of 2021 from 13.1% in the same period of 2020. Net loss after deducting the income tax expense of RMB 125.7 million was RMB 182.5 million in the fourth quarter of 2021. The increase in income tax expenses was mainly because we have made appropriate provision allowance against the deferred income tax assets, which was derived from the utilized tax loss, as it was more likely than not that the unutilized tax loss will not be utilized within the 5-year deduction period. Meanwhile, the number of total headcounts decreased by 1.7% to 10,009 in the fourth quarter of 2021 from 10,181 in the same period of last year. The productivity per capita on an annual basis increased by 37.1% to RMB 236,000 in 2021 from RMB 172,000 in 2020.
纵观2021年的全年，我们的净收入为23.87亿元，同比2020年的18.98亿元，增幅达到25.7%。在业务增长和成本费用的合理管控的双重有效措施下，我们2021年全年的经营亏损额相比2020年8.06亿元，同比大幅下降至3.69亿元，降幅达到了54.2%。经营亏损率同比2020年的42.5%，大幅收窄至2021年的15.5%。
Our total revenues increased by 25.7% to RMB 2,386.5 million in 2021 from RMB 1,897.9 million in 2020. In 2021, as we have achieved a steady growth in net revenues and have implemented effective measures to control costs and expenses, and our operating loss decreased significantly by 54.2% to RMB 369.1 million in 2021 from RMB 806.4 million in 2020. Operating margin improved by 27% points to 15.5% in 2021 from 42.5% in 2020.
接下来和大家汇报分享一下我们2021年第4季度的2个业务的运营情况。
Now, I will walk you through our 2 businesses' operations in the fourth quarter of 2021.
首先介绍一下成人 IT 职业教育业务的情况。
First of all, let's look at the performance of our adult professional education business.
优化业务结构，降低成本， 提高运营效率和产能始终是我们成人业务的经营策略。由于2021年第4季度末，我们成人业务的中心数量相对于2020年第4季度末净减少了4个，因而报读人次较2020年第4季度的 3.51 万人次下降了 14%， 为 3.02 万人次。业务净收入 3.193 亿元，同比2020年第4季度的 3.524 亿元下降了 9.4%。但是同时我们的中心单产也得到了有效的提高，平均单中心的收入由去年的约571万元上涨了 16.1%， 至2021年约1128万元。我们对成本和运营费用的管理也取得了很大的进展。2021年第4季度，我们通过大幅降低管理费用中的人员成本，使得管理费用比2020年同期降低了 61.1%。
Optimizing the business structure, reducing costs, and uplifting the operational efficiency and productivity has always been the business strategies of our adult professional education business. Due to the number of learning centers have been reduced by 4 by the end of the fourth quarter of 2021, as compared to that by the end of the same period of 2020, student enrollments decreased by 14% to 30,200 in the fourth quarter of 2021 from 35,100 in the same period of last year. Net revenue from adult professional education business dropped by 9.4% to RMB 319.3 million in the fourth quarter of 2021 from RMB 352.4 million in the same period of last year. However, we have achieved gratifying improvement in the average annual net revenue per single learning center, which increased by 16.1% to RMB 11.3 million in 2021 from RMB 9.7 million in 2020. We have also made significant progress in managing costs and operating expenses. By significantly optimizing the personnel-related costs, general and administrative expenses dropped by 61.1% in the fourth quarter of 2021 as compared to that in the same period of 2020.
2021年的第4季度，我们毕业6个月学员的就业率依旧保持在 90% 以上，良好的教学质量和效果持续构建了我们的长期优势。
The postgraduate job placement rate still maintained at a level of over 90% in the fourth quarter of 2021. Outstanding tutoring quality and effectiveness continued to build our long-term competitive advantage in the market.
纵观2021年的全年，我们成人业务的收入 11.50 亿，相较2020年同期的 11.36 亿增长了 1.2%。同时2021年全年的成本为 4.09 亿，同比2020年同期的 4.20 亿下降了 2.6%。2021年的毛利为 7.41 亿，同比2020年的 7.16 亿上浮了 3.5%。毛利率 64.4%， 同比2020年同期的 63%上涨了 1.4个百分点。
Net revenue from adult professional education business increased by 1.2% to RMB 1,150.2 million in 2021 from RMB 1,136.1 million in 2020. Cost of revenue dropped by 2.6% to RMB 409.3 million in 2021 from RMB 420.3 million in 2020. Gross profit increased by 3.5% to RMB 740.9 million in 2021 from RMB 715.7 million in 2020. Gross margin improved by 1.4% point to 64.4% in 2020 from 63% in 2020.
那么接下来我再和大家介绍一下我们的青少年素质教育业务的情况。
Next, I would like to share with you the performance of our childhood and adolescent quality education business.
2021年，我们的少儿业务在获客、运营、产品结构和业务流程的优化等方面都有了突破性的进展，使得我们在收入大幅增加的情况下，成本和运营费用也得到了有效的管理，运营效率得到了很大程度的提高。
In 2021, we achieved great development in customer acquisition, operation, product structure, and business process optimization in our childhood and adolescent quality education business. These achievements resulted in the net revenues have been increased significantly. Cost of revenues and operating expenses have been properly and effectively managed, and operational efficiency has been improved to a greater extent in 2021.
2021年的第四季度，少儿业务的净收入为3.360亿元，同比2020年第四季度的2.979亿元增长了12.8%。报读人数从2020年第四季度的12.83万人，增加到了2021年同期的15.13万人，增长了17.9%。新缴费学员包括新注册和续费学员4.28万人次，同比2020年同期的3.50万人次，增长了22.3%。
Net revenue from childhood and adolescent quality education increased by 12.8% to RMB 336 million in the fourth quarter of 2021 from RMB 297.9 million in the same period of last year. Student enrollments increased by 17.9% to 151,300 in the fourth quarter of 2021 from 128,300 in the same period of last year. The number of new contracted students, including new registered students and renewal students, increased year over year by about 22.3% to approximately 42,800 in the fourth quarter of 2021 from approximately 35,000 in the same period of last year.
2021年的全年青少年素质教育业务的净收入为12.36亿元，同比2020年的7.62亿元大幅增长了62.3%。新缴费学员包括新注册和续费学员约14.31万人次，同比去年约10.34万人次，增长约38.4%。其中，口碑和续费学员的占比持续提高，在2021年第四季度达到了70.8%，在2021年的全年，这个比例是66.4%。良好的学员满意率保证了我们2021年度报读超过1年的学员的续费比例超过了83.2%。截至2021年的12月31日止，我们全年报读学员人数为17.84万人，同比增长了26%。
In the whole year of 2021, net revenue from childhood and adolescent quality education increased significantly by 62.3% to RMB 1,236.3 million from RMB 761.8 million in 2020. The number of new contracted students, including new registered students and renewal students, was approximately 143,100, up about 38.4% from last year's 103,400, of which the proportion came for students renewal and word-of-mouth promotional activities continued to increase, reaching 70.8% in the fourth quarter of 2021, compared to the full year rate of 66.4% in 2020. The high rate of students' satisfaction guaranteed that the renewal rate of students who have enrolled for more than 1 year exceeded over 83.2% in 2021. Students' enrollments were 178,400 in 2021, up 26% year over year.
第四季度，少儿业务的中心数量由2020年第四季度末的236个扩大到了2021年第四季度末的238个。同时，单中心学生报读的人数由去年的每中心625人提升到2021年的每中心753人，平均单中心的收入也由去年的336万元上涨了55.4%，至2021年的约522万元。
The number of learning centers increased to 238 in the fourth quarter of 2021 from 236 in the same period of 2020. Student enrollment per learning center increased to 753 in 2021 from 625 in 2020. Average annual net revenue per single learning center increased by 55.4% to RMB 5.22 million in 2021 from RMB 3.36 million in 2020.
伴随着收入的增长，2021年第四季度少儿业务的成本同比增长了25.5%，毛利同比下降了4.7%，毛利率35.6%。2021年全年，由于业务净收入增长达到了62.3%，远大于成本增长的比例22.5%，也使得我们全年毛利同比增长达到了285.3%。毛利率达到了35.9%，同比上升了20.8个百分点。
In the fourth quarter of 2021, with the growth of net revenue, cost of revenue increased by 25.5% year over year, and gross profit decreased by 4.7% year over year. Gross margin was 35.6% in the fourth quarter of 2021. In 2021, the increase in net revenue was 62.3%. Outweighing the increase in cost of revenue of 22.5% and skyrocketing in the gross profit by 285.3% year over year. Gross margin increased by 20.8 percentage points to 35.9% in 2021.
我们的少儿在线业务也在持续增长。2021年全年收入1.12亿元，同比增长3.2%，在少儿总收入中占比达到9%。
Our childhood and adolescent quality education online business has continued to grow, with revenue of RMB 111.5 million in 2021, which represented an increase of 3.2% from last year, and accounted for about 9% of the total net revenue of childhood and adolescent quality education in 2021.
回顾2021年，基于线上线下相融合，也就是 OMO 的产品研发与交付能力，以及强大的线下门店运营能力和获客能力，持续构建了我们的核心优势。同时，优化业务结构、提高运营效率的举措，也让我们成功应对了局部地区的疫情反复。
Looking back on 2021, our abilities to develop and deliver products based on the online merge offline, which is OMO model, strong offline learning centers operation capabilities, and customer acquisition capabilities have continued to enhance our core competitive advantages. Meanwhile, our measures to optimize business structure and uplift operational efficiency enabled us to cope with the negative impacts arising from the sporadic occurrence of COVID-19 cases.
展望2022年，我们将在2021年的基础上继续提高运营效率，同时提高业务的增长能力，坚持长期可持续发展的战略，尽快达成全面盈利的目标。我们为此全力以赴。
So looking ahead, based on what we have achieved in 2021, we will continue to uplift our operational efficiency, and at the same time, we will enhance our business growth capabilities and adhere to the strategy of long-term sustainable development. We strive to achieve the goal of turn from net loss to net profits as soon as possible.
借此机会，再次感谢大家一直以来的关注和支持。
I want to take this opportunity to thank you all again for your continued attention and support.
接下来有请我们的 CFO Kelvin 为大家带来2021年第四季度及全年财务数据的情况。
I'd like to turn the call to Kelvin, our CFO, who will share with you the fourth quarter and full year of 2021 financial highlights. Thanks.
Thank you, Nancy. Now I would like to take you through the fourth quarter and full year of 2021 financial highlights. Total net revenues increased by 0.8% to RMB 655.3 million in the fourth quarter of 2021, from RMB 650.3 million in the same period of 2020. Net revenue from childhood and adolescent quality education business increased by 12.8% to RMB 336 million in the fourth quarter of 2021, from RMB 297.9 million in the same period of 2020. The increase was primarily due to increase in student enrollments from 128,300 in the fourth quarter of 2020 to 151,300 in the same period of 2021. Net revenue from adult professional education business decreased by 9.4% to RMB 319.3 million in the fourth quarter of 2021 from RMB 352.4 million in the same period of 2020. The decrease was primarily due to decrease in student enrollments from 35,100 in the fourth quarter of 2020 to 30,200 in the same period of this year. Cost of revenues increased by 12.4% to RMB 327.7 million in the fourth quarter of 2021 from RMB 291.5 million in the same period of 2020. The increase was primarily due to increase in personnel-related costs resulting from the growing number of teaching staff at our child and adolescent quality education learning centers, an increase in Social Security fees, which were exempt according to the preferential policies enacted by the government during COVID-19 pandemic in the fourth quarter of 2020, but were not exempt in the fourth quarter of 2021. Gross profit decreased by 8.7% to RMB 327.6 million in the fourth quarter of 2021 from RMB 358.8 million in the same period of 2020. Gross margin, which is equal to gross profit divided by net revenues, was 50% in the fourth quarter of 2021 compared to 55.2% in the same period of 2020. The decrease in gross margin was primarily attributable to the increase in total cost of revenues, outweighing the increase in total net revenue in the fourth quarter of 2021. Total operating expenses decreased by 12.6% to RMB 388 million in the fourth quarter of 2021 from RMB 443.9 million in the same period of 2020. Total non-GAAP operating expenses, which exclude share-based compensation expenses, decreased by 12.1% to RMB 383.6 million in the fourth quarter of 2021 from RMB 436.4 million in the same period of 2020. Total share-based compensation expenses allocated to the related operating expenses decreased by 41.3% to RMB 4.4 million in the fourth quarter of 2021 and RMB 7.5 million in the same period of 2020. Selling and marketing expenses decreased by 0.7% to RMB 221.8 million in the fourth quarter of 2021 from RMB 223.3 million in the same period of 2020. The decrease was mainly due to decrease in personnel-related costs resulting from drop in the number of sales staff, which was partially offset by the increase in sales promotion fee in the fourth quarter of 2021 as compared to the same period of 2020. General and administrative expenses decreased by 32.2% to RMB 132.5 million in the fourth quarter of 2021 from RMB 195.3 million in the same period of 2020. The decrease was mainly due to decrease in personnel-related costs as a result of decrease in the number of staff and the one-off income recognized resulting from the receipt of the settlement payment from the buyer group parties of the proposed privatization transaction in the fourth quarter of 2021. Research and development expenses increased by 33.3% to RMB 33.7 million in the fourth quarter of 2021 from RMB 25.2 million in the same period of 2020. The increase was mainly due to increase in personnel-related costs in the fourth quarter of 2021. Operating loss was RMB 60.4 million in the fourth quarter of 2021 compared to operating loss of RMB 85.1 million in the same period of 2020. Non-GAAP operating loss, which excluded share-based compensation expenses, was RMB 56.5 million in the fourth quarter of 2021 compared to non-GAAP operating loss of RMB 77.5 million in the same period of 2020. The company recorded an income tax expenses of RMB 125.7 million in the fourth quarter of 2021 compared to income tax expenses of RMB 7 million in the same period of 2020. The increase in tax expenses was mainly due to an increase in provision allowance made to the deferred tax assets, which was derived from the unutilized tax loss, as it was more likely than not that the tax loss will not be utilized within the 5 years deduction period. As a result of the foregoing, net loss was RMB 182.5 million in the fourth quarter of 2021, compared to net loss of RMB 94.7 million in the same period of 2020. Non-GAAP net loss, which excludes share-based compensation expenses, was RMB 178.6 million in the fourth quarter of 2021, compared to non-GAAP net loss of RMB 87.1 million in the same period of 2020. Loss per ordinary shares was RMB 3.22 in the fourth quarter of 2021, compared to loss per ordinary shares of RMB 1.72 in the fourth quarter of 2020. Non-GAAP loss per ordinary shares, which excludes share-based compensation expenses, was RMB 3.16 in the fourth quarter of 2021, compared to non-GAAP loss per ordinary shares of RMB 1.58 in the fourth quarter of 2020. Net cash inflow from operating activities in the fourth quarter of 2021 was RMB 129.5 million. Capital expenditures in the fourth quarter of 2021 were RMB 21.4 million. Now I'm going to take you through the full year of 2021 financial highlights. Net revenues increased by 25.7% to RMB 2,386.5 million in 2021, from RMB 1,897.9 million in 2020. Net revenue from travel and adolescent quality education increased by 62.3% from RMB 761.8 million in 2020 to RMB 1,236.3 million in 2021. The increase was mainly due to increase in student enrollments of childhood and adolescent quality education from 141,600 in 2020 to 178,400 in 2021. Net revenue from adult professional education business increased by 1.2% from RMB 1,136.1 million in 2020 to RMB 1,150.2 million in 2021. The increase was mainly attributable to increase in unit price of tuition fee and certificate revenue, whilst partially offset by decrease in student enrollments from 83,400 in 2020 to 72,100 in 2021. Cost of revenues increased by 12.6% to RMB 1,201.4 million in 2021, from RMB 1,066.8 million in 2020. The increase was mainly due to increase in personnel-related costs resulting from the growing number of teaching staff and increase in social security fee, which were exempted according to the prudential policies enacted by the government during COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, but were not exempted in 2021. Gross profit increased by 42.6% to RMB 1,185.1 million in 2021, from RMB 831 million in 2020. Gross margin, which is equal to gross profit divided by net revenues, was 49.7% in 2021, compared to 43.8% in 2020. The increase in gross margin was primarily attributable to the increase in total net revenues outweighed the increase in cost of revenues in 2021 and the effective cost controls we have implemented in 2021. Total operating expenses decreased by 5.1% to RMB 1,554.2 million in 2021, from RMB 1,637.4 million in 2020. Total non-GAAP operating expenses, which excluded share-based compensation expenses, decreased by 4.1% to RMB 1,535.2 million in 2021, from RMB 1,601.6 million in 2020. Total share-based compensation expenses allocated to the related operating expenses decreased by 46.9% to RMB 19 million in 2021 from RMB 35.9 million in 2020. Selling and marketing expenses decreased by 3.1% to RMB 878.1 million in 2021 from RMB 906.3 million in 2020. The decline was mainly due to decrease in advertising expenses in 2021. General and administrative expenses decreased by 9.6% to 570 million in 2021 from RMB 630.6 million in 2020. The decline was mainly due to decrease in personnel-related costs and welfare as a result of decrease in number of staff and the one-off income recognized resulting from the receipt of the settlement payment from the buyer group parties of the proposed privatization transaction in 2021. Research and development expenses increased by 5.6% to RMB 106.1 million in 2021 from RMB 100.5 million in 2020. The increase was mainly due to increase in personnel-related costs in 2021. Operating loss was RMB 369.1 million in 2021, compared to operating loss of RMB 806.4 million in 2020. Non-GAAP operating loss, which excluded share-based compensation expenses, was RMB 350 million in 2021, compared to non-GAAP operating loss of RMB 770.1 million in 2020. The company recorded an income tax expenses of RMB 114.1 million in 2021, compared to income tax benefit of RMB 35 million in 2020. The increase in tax expenses was mainly due to increase in provision allowance made to the deferred tax assets, which was derived from the unutilized tax loss, as it was more likely than not that the tax loss will not be utilized in a 5 years deduction period. As a result of the foregoing, net loss was RMB 475.8 million in 2021, compared to net loss of RMB 771.2 million in 2020. Non-GAAP net loss, which excluded share-based compensation expenses, was RMB 456.7 million in 2021, compared to non-GAAP net loss of RMB 734.9 million in 2020. Loss per ordinary shares was RMB 8.43 in 2021, compared to loss per ordinary shares of RMB 14.11 in 2020. Non-GAAP loss per ordinary shares, which excluded share-based compensation expenses, was RMB 8.1 in 2021, compared to non-GAAP loss per ordinary shares of RMB 13.44 in 2020. Net cash inflow from operating activities in 2021 was RMB 8.6 million. Net cash inflow from investing activity in 2021 was RMB 33.7 million. The net proceeds from disposal of properties and long-term investments were RMB 94.6 million, and the capital expenditures were RMB 67.7 million in 2021. In terms of financial guidance, based on our current estimates, total net revenues for the first quarter of 2022 are expected to be in the range of RMB 580 million to RMB 610 million, which represent an increase of 8.6% to 14.2% as compared to net revenues in the first quarter of 2021. After taking into consideration the seasonal fluctuation and the likely continuous impact of the COVID-19. This guidance is based on the current market condition and reflects the company's current and preliminary estimates of the market and operating conditions, which are subject to change, particularly as to the potential impact of COVID-19 on the economy in China and elsewhere in the world. This concludes my financial highlights section. Operator, we are ready for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now begin the question and answer session. If you wish to ask a question, please press star one on your telephone and wait for your name to be announced. If you wish to cancel your request, please press the pound or hash key. Please stand by while we compile the question and answer roster. As a reminder, if you wish to ask a question, please press star one on your telephone. Well, once again, the star one for questions. Well, we don't have any question at the moment. Presenters, please continue.
Yeah, I think during the moment, why not we ask Nancy Duan to add some information?
Sorry, Amber, could you please wait a second?
Certainly. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, if you wish to ask a question, please press star one on your telephone.
非常感谢很多投资者今天来到了我们的电话会上。在过去的2021年期间，虽然经历了这个疫情的局部区域的这种复发，但是我们依然实现了2个业务在全年的这种比较好的这样的增长，并且我们曾经采取的这个优化结构、降低成本这样的策略，也使得我们的这个亏损额大幅度的减亏。2022年我们还是满怀信心的，把我们的2个业务都带到健康的这个发展轨道上面去。
So this is Nancy, and first of all, I'd like to thank all of our investors for joining the call. Actually, we did quite well in 2021, even though there are sporadic fluctuations and occurrence of COVID-19, but we still achieved good growth for our two business, i.e. the childhood and adolescent quality education business, as well as very good growth for our good performance for our adult professional education business throughout 2021. In the future, we will continue to optimize our business structure, always trying to lower the cost, and we are very confident that we can achieve a very healthy and sound growth for our two businesses in 2022.
那么在2022年，我们的这个核心的经营目标依然是实现盈利。同时我们也会兼顾我们业务的健康度，还有业务可持续发展的这种能力。基于业务的健康和可持续发展能力的这种盈利是我们的战略方向。那么由于我们旗下的2个业务它们处于不同的发展阶段，所以2个业务我们也采用了不一样的经营的策略，去达到健康可持续增长的盈利的目标。那么我们看到的是这个少儿业务它已经有了6年的运营的历史，但是在整个中国的少儿编程行业里边都是处于业务的探索期。那么在这样一个阶段的业务，我们思考的是如何在增长的前提下找到它盈利的业务逻辑。那么在这儿我特别开心的和大家分享，我们认为在2021年的第4季度，我们完成了整个业务模型的探索，确定了我们少儿业务可盈利的业务模型。大家从我们2021年的经营表现里可以看到，少儿业务在大幅增长的情况下也大幅度的减亏。那么在2022年的1月份，未经审计的财务结果显示，我们的少儿业务已经开始了盈利。接下来我也和大家分析一下我们成人业务的情况。
Okay, so in 2022, we will continue to improve our operational efficiency, and our core goal is to make profits. And our overall strategy, our overall objective is to achieve long-term sustainable development. Even though that our adolescent and childhood business are in different stage than our adult professional education business, so that is why we have different strategies for these two businesses. For example, for our childhood and adolescent quality education business, it has been going on for more than 6 years, and right now, what we are focusing on is to achieve a profitable business model. And in the Q4 of 2021, we already making profit for our childhood and adolescent quality education business, and going forward, we will continue to improve our business development. By the way, the business has already developed for our childhood and adolescent business, and we have already achieved a very significant loss reduction for this business. And judging from the records of our January in 2022, we have already making profits for our childhood and adolescent business, and in the future, we will continue to hone in our childhood and adolescent quality education business.
我们的成人业务呢是有着20年经营历史，有着很好的沉淀的成熟的业务。那么在过去1年里，我们经营管理团队的策略是继续保持优化业务结构，提高效率，扩大盈利水平。那么我们看到的是2021年期末，在中心数量减少了4个的情况下，我们全年的收入是在增长的，我们全年的毛利是在增长的，我们单中心的收入是在提高的。那么即使在2022年1月份未经审计的财务报告显示，我们成人业务毛利已经达到了约70%，而我们的业务利润率约30%。
Regarding our adult professional education business, it is a business that's going on for more than 20 years. It enjoys a very mature business model. And going forward, we will continue to optimize our adult business structure, continue to improve our capability to improve its profits. And by the end of 2024, even though that the number of learning centers have been reduced by 4 by the end of the Q4 of 2021, we still can achieve a positive revenue throughout the year for our adult business, as well as significant improvement of our gross profit and the improvement of revenue per single learning center. And judging by the records of our January performance in 2022, the gross profit of our adult professional education business reached around 70%, and the profitable level reached around 30%.
大家能够看到，我们在2022年 Q1 给出的收入指引是大幅度高于我们去年同期的收入水平的。
And the revenue guidance that we gave you based on the Q1 of 2022 is significantly higher than the same period of last year.
那么我们2022年的 Q1 呢，有可能受到2月份春节因素的这种常规的影响，但是放眼到2022的全年，我想我们已经准备好了，在盈利上会有大幅度的突破。我们的2个业务都在健康和良性的发展轨迹之上。
And even though that the performance of Q1 in 2022 was slightly impacted by the China's Lunar New Year happened in February, which was quite seasonal, we are fully prepared to welcome other breakthroughs. For example, breakthroughs of our net revenue throughout the year in 2022, because we have already achieved a very sound and sustainable growth model for our 2 business.
特别感谢大家这么一段时间以来一直以来对我们的这个关注和支持哈，我们看看投资者还有其他问题要进一步交流的吗？
So just like to take this opportunity to thank all of you for your long-term attention as well as your patience and your support. Just trying to ask, are there any other questions?
Thank you. Just a quick reminder, to ask a question, please press star 1 on your telephone. We have a question from Dave Jer from Super Bowl. Please go ahead. Please ask your question, Dave.
喂，
可以提问了。
哎，你好。
哎，您好。
我首先祝贺咱们达内在21年 Q4 取得这么好的业绩啊！我想了解一下，对于目前北京等地再次爆发的疫情，课外的培训机构被临时叫停了很多，对咱们达内的线下中心有什么影响吗？
So thank you very much for that presentation. First off, I want to congratulate on Tarena's good performance in the Q4 of 2021, which was quite commendable. My question is regarding the rebound of COVID-19. Due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 in Beijing, yet again this year, a lot of off-campus training institutes have been called off and shut down. So will this impact our offline learning centers?
谢谢您的这个问题哈，我是 Nancy。在过去的2年时间里，其实疫情是一直伴随着我们的生活的，始终都是时有发生。其实对于我们每个人来说，我们都陆续的习惯要应对疫情的这种常态化。那么对于一个教育公司来说，我觉得特别重要的是，在疫情发生的情况下，我们如何提供符合孩子成长规律的这种好的教育产品和服务。因为不管疫情是否发生，我们的孩子都要健康成长。那么构建这种产品和服务的能力，我认为是企业长期发展的一种核心的能力。那么对于我们来说，幸运的是，达内的2个业务都有着先天的优势。为什么呢？因为编程培训它本身就有着先天的可以线上交付的这种属性，所以疫情其实并没有对我们的业务构成比较大的影响。
So thank you for that question. And this is Nancy, the CEO of Tarena International Incorporated. And thank you very much for that question, because it is quite normal that we see this rebound of COVID-19, and we only need to look at it with a detached mind and to look at it as a normal thing going on in China, in Beijing. And for us, we are an educational company, and we are providing good educational products as well as high quality education service. So no matter what's going on in the world, in the society, we still need to provide high quality service for the sustainable growth of our kids and for our adults. So that is why the core competitive edge for Tarena has always been a sound and a sustainable growth model. So we are very fortunate that all of our business, our adult business, as well as our childhood and adolescence business, can be transferred online, because for programming education course, it is in its nature that it can be taught online.
我进一步解读一下我们为什么认为我们是有先天的这种优势和属性的。
So let me dive a little deeper about the advantage of our curriculum.
我们基于 OMO 的这种在线编程培训已经有16年的历史了，具有非常成熟和丰富的教学交付的经验。
First off, we've been doing OMO, the online merge offline online programming training, for around 16 years. We have accumulated a lot of experience in this regard.
在2020年的疫情期间，我们成人的 IT 培训线下课程非常好的整体从线下转到了线上去交付，我们学员的反应很好，同时我们也保证了很稳定的就业率。
During the pandemic in 2020, our adult professional education business offline was totally transferred to online, and with very good and very positive feedback from our students, and also we can maintain a very stable job placement rate.
那么截止到目前为止，我们少儿的编程课，不包括机器人的少儿编程课，线下转线上的教学比率已经达到了90%以上，而且我们还在不断的提升。
So far, 80% of our offline childhood and adolescent programming course has been transferred to online, and this rate has continued, except for our robotic training course.
我们的机器人课程也具备很有效的转线上实施的这种方案，而且在整个过程里，我们严格遵守了国家的规范。
We also have already come up with a very effective transfer plan to transfer our offline robotic course to online. Meanwhile, we also will abide by the regulations of China.
在我们看到北京市教委下发了这个全体中小学生停课的通知的同时，其实在3月15号，北京市教委还印发了另外一个文件，那就是北京市教育信息化和网络安全工作要点的一个文件。
We also know that because the Chinese government has issued a policy to shut down a lot of schools and try to shut off a lot of off-campus training institutes. On March the 15th, the Education Bureau of Beijing Municipal Government has also released another document titled the 2022 Key Points for Informatization and Cybersecurity for the Education in Beijing.
那么这个文件鼓励什么呢？鼓励学校和校外的机构能够研发线上线下混合式教学的教育产品，来支撑疫情期间孩子们的正常学习。
So this document or this policy encourages off-campus institutions to come up with online merging offline learning products to deliver good learning practice and good high-quality learning product for the students.
我们的同城同美，也就是我们的少儿业务，既有线上交付和实施的能力和经验，又有很好的线下教学的场景。我相信基于此构建的应对疫情和面对未来的人工智能的这种教学模式，会成为我们新的核心竞争能力。
And our childhood and adolescent quality education business can be taught either offline or online, and I think that this will be our core competitiveness in the future, and also in the future where artificial intelligence will be the mainstay of education.
所以其实疫情既是一种挑战，但是呢也意味着很大的机会啊！我想我们是可以很好的去面对疫情的发生和未来的教学场景。再次感谢您的问题。
So I think that the COVID-19 is like a double-edged sword. It is both an opportunity but also a challenge for us. We are fully capable to cope with the impact of COVID-19, and we are very confident that we will enjoy better performance in the future. And to sum up, I want to thank you for this question again.
感谢回复。
好，谢谢啊。
Thank you.
Just a reminder, if you wish to ask a question, please press star 1 on your telephone. 在座的各位，如果您想发问，请按星字键，再按数字1。再次提醒您，如果您想发问，请按星1。Right, we don't have any other question at the moment. Presenters, please continue.
Thank you, Amber. If there are no further questions as present, we would like to conclude by thanking everyone for joining our conference call. We welcome you to reach out to us directly by emailing at ir@tedu.cn. Should you have any questions or requests for additional information, we encourage you to visit our IR website at ir.tedu.cn. Thank you.
Thank you.
谢谢。
Thanks.
Right, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, that does conclude our conference for today. Thank you for participating. You may all disconnect.